Hello friends, this is Subrat. I am going to prepare a session on CA Siteminder. In this session, we will see what is Siteminder, how Siteminder is working, and what is its significance of use in industry practice. This Siteminder is a product of identity and access management. How our access will be maintained through CA Siteminder we are going to capture in this session. So before continuing this session, we will start this session with an introduction. So in this introductory session, we will see what Siteminder can do for us in industry, and with this access management tool, what we can prepare, how we can protect our application, how our application and user identity will be secured, and how securely we access our application without creating any issue to our end user. So basically what we can find out in this session is access management mean, and how access management and why we need access management. So in this way we can proceed further to find out the way of implementation of this access management product and its whole end-to-end life cycle of this access management product in industry practice, and we will further go for implementing some use cases on it. We will protect our application, we will provide a secure access to our application with customized user login or user authentication method. So all this thing we will completely study in this lesson. So in this course series we have divided this course into two different parts. Part 1 is we will see how Siteminder will be deployed in a particular environment. In our second session, we will find out how it can be implemented. Implemented in the sense we will implement some use case, and those use cases will be linked to our real life. Those use cases are implemented as real life scenario. So with this, we will start our session. So the first session of this learning series is CA Siteminder and Introduction. In this introduction course, we will see Siteminder's feature, the advantage of Siteminder using Siteminder, and why industry follow to use access management product. Why access management product is necessary for an industry practice. So let's start this session. So what exactly we will cover in this course is, as an introduction we will find out why we need Siteminder, then we will cover whole Siteminder functionality, what all core component it has and how it will integrate with other application, and what all functionality it will provide, and what type of why we need Siteminder. All those steps we will see in the detail as a detailed structure in the course material. So then we will go for the Siteminder deployment, how it will be deployed in organization and industry practice, and what all functionality it need to deploy and need for itself to deploy in a organization. So after completing the deployment part, we will go to the configuration and how to integrate our web agent with the Siteminder, and what all what all things we need to do before protecting our application with Siteminder. So we will see all those stuffs in administration part of this tool, and we will go through each and every bit and aspect of this product and each section of this product, and we'll see what all things it is providing and how we can use those things for our requirement. Later we will go and see what all user stores are required and how all user stores can be integrated with this Siteminder tool, and how this user stores will be used in protecting your application, and what all how we can retrieve those user and to provide access to them for accessing the application. That part we will see in configuring user store. And similarly we will go and see and find out how to protect our web application, and we will protect a web application, and then we will find out what all administration part we can do with CS Siteminder, and later we will see how this provide a single sign-on functionality between our application. Suppose I have an application and I have logged into that application, and later when I access same same group of application, and whether that application require any additional authentication or not, that part we will going to see in single sign-on. So later we will find out some other tools and tools part for this one, to generating reports, to getting the policy data, to find out how to import and export the functionalities, and how can we migrate those things from one environment to other environment. Then we will find out the policy section, and in policy section we will go through each and every bit of the policy, how we can manage. We will see how to administrate the policy, and how we can manage the super user account, and how to manage our policy server log, audit log, DDS log, and how to trace, make the log file in the trace mode, and how to provide all these policies so that we can maintain the Siteminder policies. We'll go through in the chapter 10, and later we will see how to implement the password policy service, and how can we integrate reports in admin UI. And so basically we'll start this session of Siteminder's overview. In overview part of Siteminder, if I say the need of Siteminder in industry, is the first overview for this Siteminder is why we need Siteminder in our industry practice. Second, it's how it is secure, and how it is provides security to our application, our resource, and our data. And third, we will see why we need Siteminder for industry. Is it really necessary to use Siteminder or any access management product for industry practice? So welcome to this learning session. Today's scenario in this learning and today's class, if I say this is a class, and today's class we will see overview concept of application security, requirement of Siteminder, feature of Siteminder, and basic flow of a request when a user access to an application. So what objective, with what objective we are learning Siteminder? That is, one is technological aspect in the mean how technologically Siteminder is secure, and what Siteminder can provide a security level to our restricted resources. Then we will see how it is implementation, what is its benefit, and what is the security aspect of studying Siteminder for our career, how it help our career to grow in IT industry. So the first session for this learning course is concept of Siteminder. So what is Siteminder? So if I say Siteminder, this is basically an access management product where user access will be managed centrally in the sense, if I have a application group, mean more number of application, and I am a end user of my organization, and I need to access those application, then I have to remember each application's username as well as password, which is a very challenging for end user perspective, where end user have to remember each application's credential to log in and to complete its daily day-to-day work. So the problem faced by internet and organization are a large base of application, and for accessing those application, end user have to remember a number of username and password. To eradicate those problem, to remove those problem of remembering username password for each application separately, what the industry choose to provide a platform where the platform itself provide the security to application, to manage user access to its restricted application, restricted data, restricted resources, and maintain whole user access from a central management system. So for managing those central management system process, access management come into picture. So the first Siteminder product has been designed by Nitty software company. Once the Nitty designed the Siteminder and proposed the solution, it tried to eradicate the problems of internet user, that is from organization, that is to remember more number of login credentials, to access each application separately, and for each accessing each application they have to go to each application level. There is no protection for application, there is no segregation of application for user. Segregation in the sense, if I say, if I am an end user, I should work only those application and those tasks of a application which is valid for a end user. But if there is no segregation of user in my organization, then if I log into my application, then it is very difficult for developer to design the application and segregate at application level. And if I log in as an end user, what happens? I am able to see each and every application or task of a application in my home page. But if I am an end user, I am seeing a task in my portal, in my home page, then I will go to the link. But unfortunately what it does at application level, it blocks me and says you are not authorized. So it is really a very weird situation where you are allowed to see a link but you are not allowed to access that link, means you are not allowed to enter into the link. So for removing this problem also, access management product will help. So basically Siteminder is a platform for secure portal, extranet and intranet management system. How it manages those things? It manages those things by providing secure authentication, properly maintaining authorization of a user to a application, and customize the application as per the user type. So what happens when a application will be designed? The developer have to provide a security code in the same application. So if I have 50 number of application, then I have to provide my security code each and every application level. So when any access management product will come into picture, what the access management product will do, it just overtake that security code of the application and maintain that security code at its centralized management system. So in this case, the developmental effort for an application will reduce and application will be securely accessed by end user. That's why Siteminder is a web access management system. It protects and controls the access to web applications, and along with that it administrate, it audit, it log all the activity of a user in the application during the period the user is active in the application system. That means if I am a user and I am logging into a application, if I am a user, I am logging into the application, then what happens? Till the time I logged into system and I logged out from the system, Siteminder will maintain that session and audit each bit of task I have done in my system, so that if I have done anything wrong or any thing that is not supposed to be done by me, then it will be recorded and audited and captured in the Siteminder logs. So it is provided better administration process to the administrator. Along with this, Siteminder provides a seamless single sign-on experience for employee, partner and customer. Single sign-on mean if I have more number of application, then with my single credential I can able to log in to each application, and I will allow only to do those tasks for which I am authorized in the application system. So to do all these things, Siteminder come into picture. Let's go to second slide. In this slide we will find out, or we will see, what is security in perspective of Siteminder. Before Siteminder come into picture in the market, the web business user facing a number of challenge to access, to maintain and provide security to their application. So here we have defined some of the issue that business user face during that period. First thing is securing the content. I have an application design and my application contains different resources and data part. So as a developer, as an organization, I don't want to share those things directly to user without proper identifying the user. So in this case what happens, if I am not maintaining my application resources security, then everybody can access that and can do the changes which will create problem for my organization. The second issue faced by is managing user. What does it mean? Managing user does mean that organization contain different type of user. So some of them are IT user, some of them are non-IT user, some of them are administrator. So without any access management product or Siteminder, what happens? Nobody knows who is the user and what type of user or what category of user present in the organization, and that category should access which task in my application. So whenever an end user will log into my system, without managing those user, he will access each and every task that he is supposed not to do. So this is the biggest challenge for web businesses. Third is customizing user experience. In this case what happens, each application always think that my application should show that part of task to user which user should have access or authorize, but without any management product it is also not possible. Similarly, scaling large and small number of user and data traffic, providing seamless integration between portals and sites. So what happens when there is no access management, there is no security? We will just create our sites, create our link, create a portal where we will provide direct access to our link, and application provides its login page during accessing those links. But what happens when I have shown all my application in a portal and provide that to access by an end user? End user will go to each and every application and try to hit the application, and which is unnecessary task for a user. So this also create a problem for web businesses and web developers to think on. And the most challenging part is that if I have designed my portal and I want to integrate a new web-based solution or new site in my portal, I have to take a downtime, and that downtime I have to create a new link over my page and provide that link over there, and then I have to do all the customization in my portal and then again start my portal. So in this period of downtime, my business have a huge loss, means my all end user are not able to access my system. So to eradicate all this problem, Siteminder come into picture. So when we implement Siteminder in our system, how Siteminder will take care all those things, how a request will flow in Siteminder, that we will see in this part. In this part, I am going to show you, particularly when I am an end user, I open my browser, I put my URL over there and click a hit. So after hitting my URL and to retrieve my home page, what all functionality will does by Siteminder, and how this functionality provide the secure access to the user, that will be shown in this part. So this is the first flow of Siteminder, where request will be from my browser and processed by Siteminder and send me the correct response of my home page by checking each and every step of my user identity and user authorization. So let's see one diagram for this one, how exactly this work, and it will be understood by all. See, in this diagram what it shows, I am an end user. I just open my browser. In this browser I request for a resource. So right now I am taking some words, I am taking some conceptual word of Siteminder. So what does those words mean, we will discuss in later sessions. So try to understand this one, and I will clearly explain what these terms will mean. So when user requests for a resource, what happens? If I have implemented Siteminder in my system, before the request will go to the application, it will go to my web server of application. In my web server, I have implemented my Siteminder. So a Siteminder web agent will be there, which act as a restrictor to my request, which interrupt each and every request that pass through the web server to directly to my application. So Siteminder web agent will be treated as a policy decision point. It intercepts all incoming requests and check that request. So what is a policy? So it is a term for Siteminder which will be, if I say this is policy, it contains some rule, it contains some method of authentication, it contains all the calculative business process part to find out whether the user have the access to the application or not, in layman's language. So what Siteminder web agent will do, it will check the URL directly in the Siteminder policy server. Policy server where we will define our all policies, our rules, our method, everything. So this Siteminder policy server will act as a policy enforcement point, which exactly performs the user authentication, authorization check, and after that it will generate some secure cookie and secure method of application access. So first, when the request will come to agent will check in Siteminder policy server whether the URL is protected or not. If the URL is not protected, the part of web agent completes over there. It just allow access to the application. If the URL is protected, what it does, it will give a confirmation to web agent that the URL or the resource you are accessing by the user is a protected resource. If that is a protected resource, then Siteminder web agent will again send a request to policy server to find out what type of authentication method is implemented to protect this application. If I say it is a authentication method, so authentication method means how the user will provide its identity to policy server, so that the policy server will find out this is a proper user who is accessing my resource. So that thing will be defined in my authentication method. So basically here I am showing an authentication method of basic authentication method, that is a form based authentication method, where after web agent asks Siteminder policy server to check which type of user authentication method is provided. So Siteminder will instruct web agent that this is a method of basic authentication. So what Siteminder web agent will do, the Siteminder web agent will fetch that authentication method page and send to the user. User will fill the detail and again hit the submit button. That submission will go to Siteminder policy servers, and policy server will check for user authentication over Active Directory or LDAP or any authentication store that is configured with Siteminder policy server. After user authenticated, once the user is authenticated against any of the authentication store, Siteminder creates a authentication auth session cookie. In that session cookie, Siteminder provide the user's detail, some of the user detail that application may need to show in its page, to use for further processing, to maintain its session. So it will provide a secure session cookie with encryption. Along with that, it check for user authorization, whether the user is authorized to access the resource or not. Once this authorization and authentication process done, that information passed to web agent, and web agent will pass this session cookie and all to the user browser, and along with that provide access to the protected resource, so that user land over the home page of protected web application. This session or session cookie generated by Siteminder policy server will valid till the time the cookie is not expired. Basically, Siteminder will maintain a session token itself. The token contain the expiration time. After the period the token expire, so user have to re-authenticate to access the application. So this is a basic flow of a request from user browser to Siteminder, and how Siteminder provide access. This one, how this is happening. So what we will do, okay, we'll see this as an example way. What it does, I have my Siteminder implemented in my system. So just we think we have opened our Siteminder environment. In this environment, this is the administrative console of CS Siteminder. It will look like this one, and So based on user requirement we can customize all those things. So we'll see all those steps later. So now we'll see how we can protect the application and how this request is flow. So this is my web application, so deployment SiteMinder administrative console, from where I can administrate all those policies. So here I have to log in with super user. Okay, so once I logged in with my super user, you can see over here this is my super user and this is my server from where my SiteMinder is running, and I've logged into my administrative UI. Along with this UI I have my web server. I have implemented my only my web server is the IIS web server I am working on right now. So my IIS is running in the same same server level, so you can run on any server and we can integrate with administrative UI. So in administrative UI, what happens in my IIS, I have deployed a test application, and that test application is protected by uh, my SiteMinder administrative UI. So this is my test application. If I see, I have a test application, this one, and this is my test application which is deployed with my IIS. And what all the content inside my test application, I have created a wild character start and protected all the resources with my test application. So what happens, anything present in my test application level, it is just protected with my SiteMinder. So for this one, we have implemented this thing, and along with this I have added a basic level of authentication for my application. Let's see here. So this is my application component name, and this is my web agent, that is my which is present the web server level I have shown you. See, this is my SiteMinder web agent which is present over there. So this is the name of my agent, which is hosted means sit over there IIS server. And then this is my application and the resources inside my application, what all are there, which all are protected, and it's all are protected by basic authentication scheme. So if I required any application need to be unprotected, then I can manage over this one. So here I am just showing you how SiteMinder is working when I protect a test application over here. So later we will see how all those things are we can do. So here my test application is protected with basic authentication, and all the resources present in my test application is protected inside this. I have created a role. What role it does, it will decide which user will access. So I have integrated an LDAP with this one and user identity store, and I have given that all user of identity store can access this application. So here you can see that I have created a test LDAP. So this LDAP will contain a super admin which is authenticated by SiteMinder to LDAP to have a connection, and I have given my search base over here, and I have given the search query. What does this search query will do? When the user will provide the username and password, it will just search for the user in the LDAP and provide the authentication. Later we'll see how we are integrating all those stuffs with SiteMinder in the later session. Now we'll see only that how this thing is, this scenario will working. So here this is my test application, and along with test application I have created a role which is provided that all user will access this application, and I'm not passing any responses over here right now. So later we'll see how to pass the responses. So I'm closing this one, and I'm just trying to open a new session, private session. In my private session I am going to show you that if I access, it's just a test application, it's not a big application for this one right now. See what it does. So when I am hitting my application, you can see, if you see, if I am hitting any my application URL over here, this is just a application URL. So the agent sitting over IIS just send me the basic authentication username password screen. You can see the server require a username and password for authentication. Here I need to pass my secure credentials, secure username and password to access my application. If I am giving anything wrong, suppose right now I am giving wrong username, it will not allow me to access the application till the time I am not providing a secure, means the correct username and password. Suppose I am providing right now the correct credentials. Now see, so we'll go to the next part. In this part we will going to find out why we need Siteminder, why not other product. In the current market scenario, if you go in the market and find out a access management product, there are a lot of access management product available over market. So when we are choosing Siteminder, what happens, we will see with implementation of this what all benefit we are receiving and how it is optimizing our manual effort, how it is optimizing our cost, how it can provide a better security to our application. So basically Siteminder can implemented in multiple server platform. Multiple server platform in the sense, whatever the operating system, whatever the platform you choose, Siteminder is able to install or deploy it on that platform, and there is no other requirement to implement Siteminder, or there is no restriction on Siteminder deployment in any particular platform. Similarly, it provides the better centralized control of user access privileges. User access privilege, if I say, is the mean of this. Each user access, how the user will access to a resource, or for accessing that resource, what all things required for a user will be centrally controlled by Siteminder. And obviously if we are choosing a product, that should be easy enough to deploy with less infrastructure use. Similarly, if I am purchasing a product, it should be improve my end user experience. The end user should not face any issue when they are accessing the application to complete their task, day-to-day task. And whatever the server, directory server or active directory or authentication store I am using in my organization, with that my product should be capable enough to integrate. And the next point is provide a delegated administration. So delegated administration in the sense, if I am an admin, I need to pass some of the tasks to my lower order or some of the tasks to my other user. So with Siteminder I can do that thing. This is very easy to implement for large and small scale industry. It provides a centralized security management. Centralized security management in the sense, it will maintain single username password for all your application and provide a seamless SSO between all those things. Then it comes as provide policy based security, means the whole security code which the application developer need to develop and put it in their application to protect that part can be removed, that part is totally removed from application and come into web access management system of Siteminder, where it define the rule, define the policy. Based on these rules and policy, user will access to the application securely. And the same thing right now, when we implement one product of access management, then my application developer should not think about security of my application. They should provide better functionality in my application. So when Siteminder come into picture, it just remove all the responsibility of a application developer and provide that responsibility to web access management administrator. The Siteminder administrator will check all the security aspect and it will provide secure access to the end user. So due to all those reason, due to all this reason, and the Siteminder come into picture, and the Siteminder provide all those things. For this advantage of Siteminder, the industry is following this one. Along with this Siteminder product is a stable product. If I say stable product, in the sense, if you implement once in Siteminder, with Siteminder you can continue all its application without hampering the task of Siteminder or without having any manual intervention. If I say manual intervention, in the sense, it is a lightweight product, so it need less infrastructure, less size, and with that it is easily implementable and work in the industry. So this is the reason why Siteminder is chosen for industry practice. See, so how environment integration happens with Siteminder. So I told in the previous slide that Siteminder can be implemented every different operating system or platform. So if I say for platform, if I say in web server, it can be implemented in Microsoft IIS, Netscape IAX, SPUX, Solaris, Apache, IBM Domino, Oracle HTTP server. Similarly, for application server, it can be implemented on WebSphere, it can be implemented on WebLogic. For policy server, I told a component of Siteminder is policy server, that can be implemented or that can be deployed on a Windows platform or a Unix platform. Similarly, for Oracle systems to integrate with Siteminder, so it can be integrated with Oracle applications like PeopleSoft, Oracle Silver, SAP and all. Similarly, for authentication stores, I can use CA directory, Oracle Internet Directory, Oracle RDBMS, IBM DB2, Oracle LDAP, any Open LDAP, Red Hat Directory Server, Sun1 directory server, Novel A directory. So irrespective of any directory, I can integrate my Siteminder with my user directory, where I can provide authentication to a user. Similarly, development environment means developing any customization in Siteminder, that I can do in any language. I can use C, C++, Java, depends on my plugin designment, how I can design my plugin and how to implement my task or my requirement in Siteminder, that depends on me, how I can designing my scriptings. The most important part of Siteminder is the method of authentication. What all different type of authentication method Siteminder provide. So uh, when you see Siteminder authentication method section, you will find out it will provide a vast number of authentication methods. Along with that, it provide an option to a custom authentication method design. So in by default or out of box authentication methods are it is anonymous, means without authentication also it can work. If I have some application or applications home page and some notification page, that page not required to authenticate. So once I have authenticated, I can land to those page, or if I am not a authenticated user also, with anonymous authentication I can go to those pages. Similarly, it provide radius tokens, X509 certificates, MIT Kerberos, form-based user ID passwords, server-based such as radius client, hardware software token, RSA token, integrated Windows authentication. Then the most important part in the new feature which was added in authentication method is open LDAP authentication scheme. So before to this, there is no way to directly create authentication method for open LDAP. You have to go through a lot of steps to integrate Siteminder for third-party application or third-party authenticator with OAuth 2 or open LDAP. So right now it is a feature of new release of Siteminder, and later we'll see how this authentication method will work with Siteminder. So we'll go to the next slide. In this slide we will find out what all the feature of Siteminder, and in the next we'll find out the key feature or advanced feature of Siteminder. So in this feature of Siteminder is that providing SSO between application. The main purpose of Siteminder implementation is centralized user access management, where if I am a end user and I have a credential and I have an identity in my centralized management system, then with that centralized management system I can able to access all my application of organization. That application may be inside a single domain, that may be a cross domain. Single domain in the sense in my organization same domain level, if application is there, more number of application is there, that can be integrated in Siteminder and provided a seamless SSO. If it is a cross domain, if my organization has two more different domain and those applications are running in different domain node, then also I can provide a SSO between those application or provide a federation of those two domains so that those are accessible without having any issue. Similarly, it maintains the centralized control of user access, policy based user access control, authentication authorization service, better password management, auditing service. And the thing I explained before to this is that advanced authentication methods like SAML, OpenID, OAuth and all. The main feature of Siteminder is that when we are integrating a lot of application to a central management system, a central administration process should be there which will administrate all the policy, all the rule, so that all the policy, all the rules, so that what happen, those policy are managed from centralized system, so that if I change something, if I need a change in any of the policy, that will affect in the same time when I change the policy from centrally. So I no need to go to the application level, change the policy, change the rule and try to restart the application, then it will take the effect. So this is the feature provided by Siteminder. So with this feature, Siteminder remove a lot of issues from web business user, where web business user will remember only a single credential, and once with the single credential, what they can do, they can access all the application of my organization which are integrated with my Siteminder and do those tasks which are for which they are authorized. So this is the feature of Siteminder. Let's see. In this course, in this Siteminder learning course, what we will do, we will learn to implement the recent version of Siteminder, which is Siteminder R12 5.2 SP2. So what all advanced feature of this Siteminder 12.2 SP2 is? In this learning session we will learn Siteminder, the recent Siteminder of R12 5.2 SP2. So in this case, what all advanced feature of this is internationalization and two-factor authentication. Internationalization in the sense, before to this, when SiteMinder come into picture and try to implement and deploy, it only accept English character in its implementation in the sense its deployment phase, the installer, the path of system where it should be in English. After that I can change my language and those things. That is something different for depend on application side, but my SiteMinder is implemented only in the English language. So now it can be implemented in any other language also, and it provided two-factor authentication method. Two-factor authentication in the sense, uh, if I am a user, I will be authenticated against my user store, which is the first level of authentication. Then after authentication, if any of my application or any of my task or resource is really very critical for me, then I can go for a second time challenge of authenticating user against my resource. In that, what SiteMinder will provide, it will ask you for security questions and answers, so you can go for that. Or if I have a customization of providing one-time password, so I can use that and I can protect the high critical resources and use for OTP. Secondly, it support for user directory that contain user with non-English distinguished name. Before to this, each user directory contains the distinguished names. The DNs should be in English, like CN equal to name, OU equal to something, and DC equal to something, and DC equal to com. So if I say if it is a distinguished name, CN equal to DC equal to and OU equal to, so it will just English characters, but now it can support other characters also. Even now it is able to install on non-English operating systems. Non-English operating systems mean if I have a Windows authenticate a Windows system and I am trying to install my SiteMinder and my operating system language is English, so I can install on English and I have to install on English before to this. So now if I choose my operating system language as a non-English character language, then also I can implement CS SiteMinder right now of this release. Then comes to my rules, my policy, my configuration object, those all also supports non-English characters. The main important thing in this release is that password policy. Right now what happens, any of the access management product, you will go and see if I am using a password policy that will be implemented to all of my user in a particular group, or all of my user in a particular container. I can't segregate password policy for some user in my container and other password policy for other user. So this is the most important feature SiteMinder is providing right now. And the authentication method, I already told this thing. If I am try to authenticate myself against a third party, I don't want to maintain my user identities or my users in my organization policy store, then what happens, I can go for OAuth authentication, where the authentication will be provided by third party, and based on that authentication token and the token's validity or user allow, when the user allow for creating an user identity, just a replication of user identity in my store, instead of storing my user password in my organization store, I will store only a copy of the user data in my store and I will provide access to my application. For sensitive application, we can configure to re-authenticate again while granting the access. Means Here Siteminder in this release can provide or challenge user during authorization process. Suppose Siteminder feels that user is authenticated, but user authorization needs to be authenticated again or to be challenged with some other authentication process or authorization process to validate the user is a valid user to access that also can be implemented in this release. And the most important part is logging process. So here what happens, Siteminder providing a better logging process mean each and every task is logged in the log, and log will show you who access the system at what point of time and how it accessing and what all task he has done in the system, so that all those processes will be audited properly. And the main other thing is that previously I am a user of organization, and most organization want that when the user will log into the corporate systems, then based on that system authentication it should be allowed to access their default applications. Mean, if I am an user of a organization, when I logged into my corporate uh, computer or my corporate organization system, it directly authenticate me against my corporate AD. So the end user should not be challenged when accessing the corporate applications of my organization. So it will be a NTLM based authentication scheme in before, and right now it will be changed to replaced by a Windows authentication scheme. What it does, it will just create a session for you in your authentication session in your local AD and create a token for this one when you logged into your system, and that token will be validated by your Siteminder policy server, and based on this validation it will provide access to the different application when you hit on your URLs which are protected by Siteminder. So these all are the basic introduction part of Siteminder. So I think this clears the requirement of Siteminder, why we need Siteminder in the industry practice. So in the later sessions we will see how Siteminder deployment will happen, how it will be implemented, and how it protect our application and provide restricted access to our restricted data part. So with this, thanks everybody. See you on the later sessions.